The streets of Eldridge Park were no place to be after midnight. The orange flicker of failing streetlights cast long, jagged shadows on the cracked sidewalks. Windows were shuttered, doors locked, and even the stray cats disappeared into the night, knowing the air was thick with danger. Malik Hayes, 17 years old and already weathered by too many hard winters and harder men, made his way home through the back alleys, clutching a torn canvas bag containing a half-empty loaf of bread, a used phone charger, and a cheap watch he'd fixed for a neighbor. The wind carried the sharp scent of rain and old oil from a nearby mechanic's lot. Malik's sharp eyes scanned the corners, his instincts a constant gnawing companion. In Eldridge Park, you learned young that the street didn't care about your plans, your heart, or your dreams. It would chew you up if you gave it reason. He was halfway down Harrow Alley, a narrow passage between two abandoned buildings, when he heard it. The muffled thud of fists meeting flesh, a soft whimper, and the rough, ragged laughter of men without conscience. Malik slowed, heart pounding. The kind of pounding that came from too many close calls and the ghostly memory of his mother's voice. Mind your own, baby. The streets don't spare no heroes. But something felt wrong. It wasn't a typical robbery or street dispute. It sounded desperate. Malik crept forward, sticking close to the brick wall, peering into the gloom. Two men, faces obscured by shadows and hooded jackets, loomed over a figure slumped on the ground. The dim light caught on something. A silk scarf, pale skin smeared with blood, a glint of gold jewelry. Whoever she was, she didn't belong here. "Stupid rich bitch," one of them spat, grabbing her by the collar of her coat. "You think money makes you untouchable out here?" She coughed, her voice barely a rasp. "You don't know who you're dealing with." That was enough for Malik. He knew what happened next in stories like this. The alley swallowed them, the city forgot, and the system didn't blink. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a weapon. But he had the rage of 1,000 quiet injustices boiling in his chest. Grabbing a broken length of pipe from the trash, Malik shouted, "Hey!" The men turned, surprised to see a skinny kid with fire in his eyes. "Get lost, punk," the taller one growled. Malik didn't answer. He ran straight at them, swinging the pipe with desperate force. It caught one across the forearm, making him howl and drop his grip on the woman. The other came at Malik, swinging wildly, but the boy ducked, his thin frame an advantage in the tight space. A scuffle of fists, shouts, a lucky knee to the gut. Malik fought with the reckless courage of someone who'd seen too many beaten faces, too many indifferent nights. And then, in a moment of impossible luck or fate, the men fled, cursing as they vanished into the maze of alleys. Breathing hard, Malik dropped the pipe. The woman lay on her side, blood matting her hair, one eye swollen shut. She was older than him, but not old, maybe early 30s. Even in this state, there was something regal about her face, sharp-boned and proud. He crouched beside her. Miss, you okay?" She coughed, a thin line of blood at the corner of her mouth. Her fingers grasped weakly at his wrist, surprisingly strong. "Listen to me," she rasped, her good eye locking onto his. "I'm calling someone." "No," she hissed. "No cops. Not yet." Malik hesitated. Who the hell was she? Then, with trembling lips, she leaned closer and whispered something into his ear. A name, a phrase. A single, desperate confession that hit Malik like a punch to the gut. His face went slack. The blood drained from his own skin. No way, he breathed. The woman's hand tightened, then fell away, her body going limp. Malik sat there in the damp alley, the weight of what she said sitting heavier than the bricks around them. It wasn't just a name. It was a curse, a buried memory, a ghost from Malik's own past. A name that didn't belong in this time, in this place, but had haunted his mother's frightened eyes when she'd tucked him in at night. It was a name Malik hadn't heard in 10 years. And now, whispered in blood and fear by a stranger, it cracked something wide open in him. The sound of sirens in the distance made him move. He couldn't stay. He wasn't supposed to be here. The city wouldn't care that he was saving someone. To them, a black boy in a blood-stained alley was a suspect, not a savior. But before he fled, Malik did one more thing. He slipped the woman's phone from her coat pocket and took a quick photo of her face, just in case the streets tried to erase her too. He left the alley and disappeared into the night, but nothing in Malik Hayes' world would ever be the same again. If this story of injustice and transformation moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that turn pain into power. Malik Hayes ran. Not the kind of sprint you did for sport or to impress a crowd of kids at the park. This was a run forged from instinct, carved out by years of surviving in a city that measured a black boy's worth in how well he could disappear. The storm clouds overhead finally broke, unleashing cold rain that streaked the filth from rooftops and turned the gutters into rivers. He ducked through a shortcut behind a boarded-up church, vaulting a rusted fence with the ease of someone who'd done it 100 times. His heart wasn't racing from the run. It was the words she'd whispered. Malik had heard a lot of lies, a lot of cruel truths in his 17 years, but nothing like that. He cut through an alley, the wet concrete slick beneath his sneakers, until he reached his makeshift home, a cramped one-room back unit behind an auto repair shop. The light over the door flickered weakly, and inside the air was thick with the scent of old oil and rain-soaked wood. Malik slammed the door, locking it with a trembling hand. He leaned against it, closing his eyes, replaying the scene over and over, her face pale and broken, the way her bloodied lips moved to form those words. Tell Marcus Hollings. It's his debt now. Marcus Hollings, a name spoken only in fearful whispers on his block. A man too rich to be seen, too cruel to be forgotten. He ran half the city from a penthouse no one Malik knew had ever set foot in. Rumors clung to him like smoke. Girls gone missing, families forced from their homes, favors that came with bloodstains. And Malik had heard it somewhere before, long ago, in a memory he never meant to keep. His mother. He saw her face now, Rosa Hayes, a woman with soft eyes and a haunted expression that rarely left. She'd vanished when Malik was 8 years old. No note, no call, just gone one rainy night. Everyone told him she probably got caught up in something, drugs maybe, or left for a man. But Malik had never believed it. And now somehow, that man's name was tangled up with the bleeding woman in that alley. Malik paced, his pulse thudding against his skull. The old TV played an infomercial no one was watching. His phone buzzed. A message from Tyrone, his only friend since childhood. You good? Cops heavy on 43rd, lay low. Malik typed back a quick yeah, but he wasn't good. On impulse, he opened his phone's gallery, pulling up the photo he'd snapped of the woman's face. Even battered, she was striking. Long dark hair, high cheekbones, and a hint of something familiar he couldn't name. He zoomed in on the necklace tangled in her scarf, a thin chain with a tiny silver pendant. It was shaped like an eclipse, a half-moon swallowing a sun. His stomach lurched. His mother had owned the same one. He remembered her tucking it beneath her collar before leaving for work at the diner. She never took it off, and when she vanished, it vanished with her. Malik swallowed hard. This wasn't coincidence. He took a breath and made a decision born of fury and grief sharpened by too many silent nights. He had to find her, not the woman in the alley. Not yet. The her that mattered, his mother, or whatever thread connected this whole nightmare. But before he could plan his next move, a knock rattled the door. His heart stopped. No one knocked at his place after dark. No one. He grabbed the rusted crowbar he kept by the bed and edged to the door. Who's there? A pause, then a voice. Calm, low, dangerous. Malik Hayes? He didn't answer. I suggest you open this door, boy, or what happens next won't be quiet. A second voice, colder, spoke up. You were seen. Harrow Alley. You left with something that don't belong to you. Malik's blood turned to ice. They'd found him. He didn't think. He grabbed his phone and the photo of the woman, stuffing it into his pocket, then slipped out the back window just as the door burst inward. Two men in black suits, faces shadowed by the flickering light, stepped inside. One of them carried a knife. Not a street blade, something surgical, professional. Malik was already sprinting into the rain, feet splashing through puddles, every nerve screaming. They weren't cops, they weren't street muscle. These men were different, hired to clean up loose ends, and Malik Hayes had just become one. He knew where he had to go. The only person in the world who might know what to do. Ms. Henrietta, the old woman who ran the corner market and sometimes told him things she shouldn't know. People called her crazy. Malik knew better. And tonight, he needed answers. As he disappeared into the night, the words the woman had whispered followed him like a ghost. Tell Marcus Hollings. It's his debt now. A storm was coming, and Malik was done running. Eldridge Park always smelled like rust and wet asphalt after the rain. The streets were slick with puddles reflecting broken neon signs and battered billboards advertising luxuries no one around here could afford. Malik Hayes moved through the dark like a shadow, keeping to the narrowest alleys, his chest tight, his thoughts spinning. Every step closer to Ms. Henrietta's corner store brought him back to places he thought he'd locked away for good. When Malik was a boy, before the world turned its back on him, Ms. Henrietta's shop had been a kind of sanctuary. An old bodega tucked between a pawn shop and a boarded-up tax office, its dusty windows plastered with faded lottery ads and missing person flyers. Henrietta herself was something of a legend. Ancient, sharp-eyed, with a head full of graying braids and a voice that could cut through bone when she wanted. The street said she was a witch. Others claimed she was a fortune teller. Malik had always thought she was just someone who saw too much and lived long enough to know what people would rather keep buried. The little bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. The air was thick with incense and old wood. Shelves sagged under the weight of canned goods no one bought, and dusty bottles of cough syrup. Henrietta sat behind the counter, knitting something Malik couldn't name, her wrinkled hands steady as ever. She didn't look up. You bring trouble with you, boy. Malik shut the door fast and pulled his hood low. I didn't have a choice, Ms. Henrietta. She finally raised her eyes, sharp and knowing, like she'd already read the words in his head. Sit. Malik obeyed. He perched on a cracked stool near the counter, eyes darting toward the window, half expecting those men to appear out of the dark. Henrietta set her knitting aside. Say what you need to say, child. Malik hesitated, then fished the photo from his pocket, placing it on the counter. You know her? The old woman leaned in, squinting at the bruised and bloodied face on the screen. Her lips pressed tight. She alive? Last I saw. Henrietta's hand trembled for a fraction of a second before she covered it with the other. That's Victoria Langston. The name meant nothing to Malik. She's Marcus Hollings's blood, Henrietta said, voice low, like the walls might be listening. His niece. But that girl, she don't run with his kind no more. Been trying to take him down for years. Disappeared off the grid 18 months back. Nobody knew where. Malik's stomach dropped. She told me. Before she passed out, she said, Tell Marcus Hollings it's his debt now. What does that mean? Henrietta's gaze softened in a way that unsettled him more than her anger ever had. Means she knows what happened to your mama. The words hit like a hammer. Malik's breath stuttered. You know something about my mother? Henrietta sighed, standing slowly and moving to a shelf behind her. She pulled down an old leather-bound ledger so worn the corners were frayed. She opened it to a page marked with a crimson ribbon and turned it toward Malik. A list of names, handwritten. Some scratched out, some circled. And there, third from the top, Rosa Hayes Malik's throat tightened. What is this? Names of the women who went missing, Henrietta said softly. The ones no one looked for. Most had kids, jobs, people who loved them. All poor, all black or brown, and all connected to Marcus Hollings one way or another. The storm outside intensified, wind rattling the glass. Malik felt his world tilt. She worked for him, Henrietta continued, back when he ran them clubs on the east side. Real dirty places, boy. Girls went in and never came out. When Rosa tried to blow the whistle, she vanished. Malik swallowed against the rising bile. You knew this, and you never told me? Henrietta's expression hardened. Wasn't safe then, It's barely safe now. You think those men after you tonight was a coincidence? Victoria Langston tried to expose Holling's side business. Nearly got herself killed. And now you walked into the middle of something bigger than you can imagine. Malik gripped the counter like it was the only thing holding him up. I have to find her, Victoria, and finish what she started. Henrietta nodded slowly, the barest glimmer of pride in her eyes. If you do this, there's no turning back, Malik. Men like Marcus Hollings don't let go. They bury problems. Then it's time someone dug them up. Henrietta reached beneath the counter, pulled out a battered manila envelope. I've been saving this for the right day. Inside, Malik found a faded photograph of his mother. Younger, laughing, her arm around a girl he didn't recognize. That's Victoria, Henrietta murmured. They knew each other, close once. Before the streets broke 'em apart. Malik slipped the photo into his pocket next to the one of Victoria's battered face. The weight of them felt like a promise. I need to know where she is, he said, before those men find her again. Henrietta's lips twisted into a faint, grim smile. I know a nurse at City General. Word is a Jane Doe came in tonight. Beat up bad, no ID, no questions asked. That'll be her. Malik's jaw clenched. Then I'm going. Henrietta gripped his wrist, the old woman's hand surprisingly strong. Careful, boy. You ain't just fighting for you no more. The ghosts of this place, they'll take everything if you let 'em. Malik nodded once, his voice steady. Let 'em try. He turned and stepped back into the storm. City General wasn't the kind of hospital people in Eldridge Park went to unless they had no other choice. It sat on the edge of the city's wealthiest district, where charity cases like Malik Hayes didn't exist on paper. The fluorescent lights were too bright, the walls too white, and the air too clean in a way that felt hostile, like it wanted to scrub away every trace of the broken people who came through its doors. Malik slipped through the automatic entrance, pulling his hoodie low. A beat-up vending machine hummed against the wall, offering overpriced snacks no one touched. The night security guard didn't even glance up from his phone. It was just after 3 a.m., the dead hour when the city slept and sins were either confessed or buried. The nurse at the reception desk was older, with weary eyes and a halo of gray curls. She didn't belong in a place like this either. Her badge read Mae Jackson. Malik approached, palms sweating, heart hammering against his ribs. Excuse me, he started, his voice rough from running and rain. My aunt. I heard she might be here. Got brought in tonight. I need to see her. Mae looked him over, not with the disdain he expected, but the tired wariness of a woman who knew how the world worked. Name? He hesitated. I don't know. She didn't have ID. Maybe listed as Jane Doe. Mae's brows lifted slightly. That was too specific. Room 318, she said quietly, and before Malik could react, she added, You didn't hear that from me. Malik nodded his thanks, moving fast before someone changed their mind. He took the stairs, avoiding the elevators. Every step up tightened the knot in his stomach. His mind raced with what-ifs. What if she was gone? What if those men found her first? What if this was another dead end in a life full of them? The third floor was quiet, the hum of machines and the occasional nurse's voice the only sounds. Room 318's door was cracked open, a sliver of dim light spilling into the hall. Malik peered inside. There she was. Victoria Langston lay unconscious, her face a map of bruises and cuts, an IV in her arm. The silver pendant around her neck, the eclipse symbol, glinted faintly in the low light. Malik's chest tightened at the sight of it. The same symbol his mother wore, the same one Henrietta kept in her ledger. He stepped inside and closed the door softly. For a moment, all he could do was stand there and watch her breathe. The rise and fall of her chest was uneven, but steady. A monitor beeped softly beside her, a fragile promise she was still hanging on. Malik pulled a chair to her bedside and sat down. His throat felt raw. I don't know what game you're caught up in, he murmured, his voice cracking. But you got my mother's name in your mouth, and you don't get to do that without answering for it. Victoria stirred, her brow furrowing slightly. Malik wasn't sure if she was conscious, but he kept talking. I've been chasing ghosts for 10 years. Rosa Hayes. That was my mama. She worked for Marcus Hollings, and one night she left for work and never came home. And nobody gave a damn. Not the cops, not the papers, not the people on my block. And now you show up, bleeding in some alley, and you whisper his name like it's a curse and a promise in one. He leaned closer, his voice lowering to a broken whisper. You tell me what you know. You owe me that. Her lips moved. Malik froze, leaning in. Help. Me, she rasped, barely audible. He grabbed her hand. I got you, I swear. Just tell me what they did. Her eyes cracked open, one bloodshot, the other swollen shut. She looked straight at him, and for a second Malik saw something his own mother used to wear on her face. Defiance. Fire. They killed your mama, Victoria whispered. Malik's breath stuttered. The words he'd waited years to hear felt like a blow to the chest. He fought against the tears burning in his throat. Why? He croaked. Because she found out. Victoria's voice cracked every word in effort. About the girls, the money, the deals. Hollings runs more than clubs. He runs people, women, kids. Your mama, she was going to go to the feds. Malik's stomach turned. Rage, grief, disbelief. It all collided in his chest. Victoria's hand gripped his weakly. They'll come for you now. You shouldn't have helped me. Too late for that, Malik whispered. He thought about the men at his place, about Henrietta's ledger, about the name that had haunted his nights for a decade. I'm not walking away this time, he said. Not till it's done. Victoria nodded faintly, her eyelids drooping again. There's a file, she whispered. Safe, behind the red wall. Langston Holdings, office, proof, names, everything. Then her eyes closed. The monitors kept beeping. Her grip slackened. Malik sat there, the weight of those last words settling like lead in his chest. Behind the red wall. Proof. His mother's face rose in his memory, tired but smiling, telling him once, some truths, baby. They'll try to bury so deep, it'll take a storm to dig them out. Malik stood. He was going to be that storm. The rain had eased into a soft mist by the time Malik left the hospital. The city's neon glow reflected off the wet pavement like 1,000 restless ghosts. He kept his hood up, head down, moving fast. Every corner he turned, every shadow that twitched in the gloom sent a jolt through his nerves. But Malik wasn't running anymore. He had a name, a location, and a promise made over his mother's memory. Langston Holdings. It wasn't just any office. It sat downtown, nestled between towers of glass and steel built by old money and older sins. Malik knew it from the local news. The gleaming, mirror-faced skyscraper that dominated the skyline. All sharp lines and polished lies. He had no business in a place like that. No badge, no pass, no excuse. But it was 4 a.m., the one time even wolves went to sleep. He cut through back streets until he reached a parking garage near the building's service entrance. A worn utility jacket hung on a dumpster, forgotten by some maintenance worker or homeless man. Malik grabbed it, covering his hoodie, smearing his face with a streak of engine grease from his palm. If anyone asked, he was janitorial. The building's rear doors were guarded by a bored-looking security guard on a smoke break. Malik timed his move with a passing garbage truck's roar, slipping through a side entrance left ajar for deliveries. Inside, the marble floors gleamed in the dim night lights. A wide staircase led to the upper levels, but Malik headed for the elevator bank. He scanned the directory. Langston Holdings, 47th floor. 47 floors was too risky. The stairs would take too long. He glanced around, heart pounding, then spotted a cleaning cart parked nearby. A badge hung from a lanyard draped over the handle. Malik grabbed it, slung it around his neck, and wheeled the cart toward the service elevator. A guard at the desk glanced up. Malik kept his head low, giving a practiced, exhausted sigh. Leak in the executive washroom. Malik mumbled. The guard barely grunted, waving him through. The service elevator creaked as it climbed. Malik's pulse pounded in his ears. Each floor it passed felt like a countdown. He kept replaying Victoria's words in his head. Behind the red wall, the 47th floor was silent. A long hallway of polished wood doors and thick carpet that swallowed his footsteps. The Langston Holdings logo shimmered in brass over double doors at the end of the hall. Locked. Malik used the cleaning cart as cover, pulling a slender pry bar from beneath the towels. The old habits Henrietta's brother, Marvin the locksmith, had taught him came flooding back. A few tense seconds and the latch gave. Inside, the office was all glass and mahogany, the city lights bleeding through panoramic windows. Expensive, soulless. And there, at the far end, an abstract mural painted in deep crimson, nearly black in the low light. The red wall. Malik crossed the room, his chest tightening. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. Some truths, baby. They'll try to bury so deep. He ran his hand along the wall's surface until his fingers caught a faint seam near the baseboard. A concealed panel. No lock, just a push release. Malik hesitated, then pressed. The panel swung open. A safe. Digital keypad. Malik's stomach dropped, but he wasn't leaving empty-handed. He pulled his phone, quickly snapping pictures of the safe's serial number, the panel, the surroundings. Evidence mattered. Henrietta had drilled that into him. Then a soft voice behind him. You shouldn't be here. Malik spun, heart slamming into his ribs. A tall, pale man in a tailored suit stood by the door, a silencer in hand, the barrel pointed squarely at Malik's chest. You're a stubborn little problem, the man said, stepping closer. His voice was smooth, practiced. We don't like problems. Malik's mind raced. He had no weapon, no exit, no time. The man cocked his head, almost curious. Do you even know what's in that safe, boy? Malik's jaw clenched. Proof, names, deals. What you did to my mother. The man's smile faded. Ah, Rosa Hayes, that explains the attitude. The rage surged in Malik's chest, white-hot and blinding. I should thank you, the man went on. Victoria's stubbornness almost cost us. But you led us right to her. That's when Malik saw it. A faint flicker in the reflection of the glass wall behind the man. A figure moving. The man raised his silenced pistol, finger tightening on the trigger. A single shot rang out, but it wasn't from his gun. The man crumpled to the floor, a neat hole in his temple, blood pooling fast. Behind him, a figure stepped into the light. It was Victoria Langston, weak, bruised, but standing, a pistol in her trembling hand. I told you, I don't die easy, she rasped. Malik stared, stunned. How did you? Hospital bracelet still on, genius. She managed a wry smile through the pain. But I wasn't about to let you do this alone. Malik's throat tightened. For the first time in years, someone had his back. Help me, Victoria said, limping to the safe. We get this open, we burn their world down. Malik moved beside her. The night wasn't over. The reckoning had just begun. The safe's digital display blinked expectantly. Malik wiped his palm on his jeans, the sweat sticking to the worn denim. Victoria's breathing was ragged, blood crusted along her temple, one eye nearly swollen shut. But her hands were steady as she reached for the keypad. I don't suppose you know the code, Malik muttered, keeping one eye on the dead man slumped against the wall. Victoria coughed a humorless laugh. I do. I just never thought I'd live long enough to use it. She typed in 6 numbers. The safe gave a soft mechanical click, and the door creaked open. Malik leaned in. Inside were 3 thick leather-bound ledgers, a flash drive, and a stack of old faded photographs bound with a rubber band. Malik's pulse quickened as his fingers brushed the brittle edges. Faces stared back at him. Young black and brown women, some smiling, some with weary, fearful eyes. One face made his stomach drop. His mother, Rosa Hayes, grinning in a cheap waitress uniform, her arm around a younger Victoria Langston. I knew it, Malik whispered. His throat thickened. "That's my mother." Victoria glanced over, her face softening. "She was brave, Malik, braver than anyone I ever knew." She pulled the flash drive free, slipping it into her jacket pocket. "This has it all. Financial records, transaction logs, names. The politicians, judges, cops, every one of Holling's clients and every girl he trafficked. The ledgers back it up." Malik gritted his teeth. "And what about my mother? What happened to her?" Victoria's expression clouded, grief and guilt battling behind her battered face. "The night she disappeared, she was supposed to meet me. She had evidence. She wanted us both to go to the feds, but Holling's men found out. They grabbed her before she could run." Malik felt something inside him crack, years of unanswered questions flooding forward. "They killed her?" I don't know," Victoria admitted, her voice breaking. "They told me she was dead, but I never saw a body. Hollings liked to make people disappear when it suited him." Malik's hands balled into fists. "Then we finish this. We take this to the press, to the police, hell, to every goddamn person in this city if we have to." Victoria gave a pained nod, her gaze fierce. "There's a board meeting tomorrow. The whole Holling syndicate in one room. If we can get this to the right people before they bury it." She trailed off, glancing toward the door. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hall. "Company," Malik murmured, grabbing the ledgers. Victoria's grip tightened on the pistol. "We move now." "The service elevator. My car's in the basement garage." Malik helped steady her as they slipped from the office, navigating the shadowed hallways. Every turn felt like a trap waiting to spring, every stretch of empty corridor a fragile, fleeting mercy. Malik's mind spun with the weight of what they carried. Not just evidence, but years of stolen lives, families shattered, names buried under concrete and cash. At the service elevator, Victoria swiped a stolen keycard. The doors slid open. They stepped inside, Malik's heart hammering against his ribs as the numbers counted down. At the basement level, Malik peered out first. Empty. A lone black sedan waited across the garage. They moved fast, the mist of exhaust from a generator thickening the air. The city above them remained oblivious, the neon skyline glittering with blood money. Inside the car, Victoria handed Malik a phone. "This number calls Zoe Walker at the Tribune. She's the only reporter I trust. You get this to her and it's over." Malik hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll draw them off," Victoria said. "They want me more than the files. If I'm gone, you've got a clear run." "No," Malik said, surprising even himself with the steadiness of his voice. "You've run enough. We finish this together." Victoria stared at him for a long, loaded moment, then nodded. "All right, kid. Let's tear the whole goddamn house down." As they pulled out of the garage, headlights slashed across the darkness. A convoy of black SUVs screeched around the corner. Victoria cursed, flooring the gas. Malik gripped the ledgers like a lifeline. The night wasn't done. And neither were they. The black sedan cut through the sleeping city like a phantom. Headlights off, Victoria's jaw clenched as she guided them through side streets Malik didn't even know existed. The skyscrapers loomed like silent witnesses, their mirrored surfaces catching flickers of light from street lamps, and the distant red glow of brake lights. Behind them, the convoy of black SUVs stalked them like wolves. The distant hum of engines and the flash of headlights in the rearview mirror told Malik everything he needed to know. They weren't getting out of this easy. Victoria reached for a small device on the dashboard, pressing a button that made the sedan's taillights cut off completely. She glanced at Malik, her battered face pale in the dim light. "You still sure about this?" she asked, her voice rough but steady. Malik didn't hesitate. "I'm done running." They sped through a tunnel, concrete walls flashing by in rapid succession. Malik's heart pounded in his ears. His hands clutched the flash drive and the ledgers like his life depended on it, because tonight, it did. They burst out of the tunnel into the old industrial district, a landscape of empty warehouses and rusted shipping containers. Victoria pulled the car into a narrow alley, killing the engine. "On foot from here," she said, her breath coming in sharp bursts. There's an old broadcasting tower a block over. Zoe Walker's meeting us there. Live feed, full broadcast. No one can shut it down. Malik's pulse kicked up. She's risking her life? Victoria gave a wry smile. That's what real people do when it matters. They slipped from the car, moving quickly through the mist-drenched streets. Every sound, a clatter of glass, a dog's distant bark, made Malik's nerves twitch. The city felt alive in a way it hadn't before, like it was holding its breath for what came next. Half a block away, Malik stopped short. A name had flickered in his mind. A memory of Henrietta's ledger, of the men whispered about in back rooms and boarded-up churches. One name had been circled, again and again, a name Victoria hadn't spoken. He grabbed her arm. Wait, there's someone else. It wasn't just Hollings. The ledgers. One name kept coming up, Ezra Caldwell. Victoria's face paled. Caldwell? Malik nodded. Who is he? She swallowed hard, the fear in her eyes older than tonight. He's worse than Hollings. Hollings was a front, a street general. Caldwell is the one they all answered to. Owns half the judges, the council, the DA's office. He made this city a graveyard for people like your mother. The weight of that name settled on Malik's chest like a stone. That's who the files implicate, Victoria said. Every missing girl, every bribe, every contract signed in blood. It leads to Caldwell. Malik's voice was low, steady. Then tonight's his last night breathing easy. They made it to the base of the broadcasting tower, a rusted steel relic left for dead when the city moved on. Zoe Walker waited in the shadows, a compact camera slung over her shoulder, her face drawn tight. You got it? She asked without preamble. Victoria nodded, handing her the flash drive and one of the ledgers. Stream goes live in 5 minutes. Zoe's hands trembled as she plugged the drive into her laptop, the screen flickering to life. Lines of text and scanned documents scrolled by. Payment records, photos of missing women, police reports that never made it to the public. This is enough to burn this whole city down, Zoe whispered. That's the point, Malik said. Suddenly, headlights swept across the alley. The SUVs had found them. Victoria grabbed Malik's arm. Go with Zoe. Get to the roof. I'll hold them off. No, Malik said fiercely. We stay together. But Victoria was already pulling a small pistol from her coat, her lips twisted in a grim smile. You're stubborn like your mama. The SUV doors burst open, suits and guns spilling into the alley. Zoe bolted for the fire escape, Malik close behind. The old iron stairs rattled beneath their feet as they climbed. Gunshots cracked through the night. Victoria ducked behind a dumpster, returning fire, buying them precious seconds. Malik reached the roof, Zoe already setting up the broadcast equipment. The city sprawled beneath them, unaware it was about to witness its reckoning. Zoe looked at Malik. You ready? He nodded. The screen blinked. Live feed. Active. Malik stepped into the frame. His voice was steady, every word sharp as a blade. My name is Malik Hayes. 10 years ago, my mother Rosa was taken by men who thought poor black women were disposable. Tonight, we name them. Ezra Caldwell, Marcus Hollings, and the cowards who helped them. Below, sirens howled. The SUVs closed in. But the truth was already free, and nothing would stop it now. The storm finally broke as Malik's voice echoed through the broadcast feed. Thunder rolled over the city like a war drum, and rain swept down in sheets, streaking the lenses of Zoe's rooftop cameras. But the stream held, a bright, unflinching spotlight in a world built on shadows. The footage zipped across social media, hijacking timelines, forcing its way onto phones and desktops in offices where blood money sat behind marble walls. Every word, every name Malik spoke felt like a hammer striking glass. Ezra Caldwell, Malik said again, his voice sharp despite the wind. The man behind the curtain. Marcus Hollings, the enforcer. And every judge, cop, and politician who took their money while our sisters, our mothers, our people vanished. Zoe's screen pinged as the viewership counter surged. Thousands, then tens of thousands. Victoria appeared at Malik's side, bruised and soaked, blood trickling from a fresh cut above her brow. Her voice was rough but steady. "I was one of them," she said into the camera. "I sat at their tables. I signed their deals. I stayed quiet when I should have screamed. But tonight I'm done." Behind them, the alley below exploded into chaos. The SUVs roared forward, headlights slashing through the rain. Black-clad men poured out, weapons raised. Zoe didn't flinch. "We're still live," she warned, her fingers dancing over the keyboard. Gunshots cracked, glass shattered somewhere down the block. Malik grabbed the remaining ledger from Zoe's side, holding it up to the camera. "These are their victims," he said. "Not statistics. Not unsolved disappearances. Real people. Rosa Hayes was my mother. And I'm not asking for justice anymore. I'm taking it." The screen flooded with comments. "Where's the DA? Why isn't anyone stopping this? They're finally naming names." Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket, Henrietta's name flashing on the screen. "You did it, boy." Her voice came through rough, proud. "They watching, cities awake." Victoria loaded her last magazine, her shoulders squared. "We buy them time," she said. "No," Malik replied. "We end it." Down below, Ezra Caldwell's black limousine appeared. Even in the chaos, even with his empire unraveling in real time, the man had the arrogance to show his face. The passenger door opened, and a tall, silver-haired man stepped into the rain, flanked by guards. His face was calm, composed, as if none of this mattered. Malik stared down at him, the image of a man who'd signed death warrants over cocktails and million-dollar cigars. "That's him," Victoria whispered. "I know." The broadcast caught Caldwell's arrival, the camera zooming in on his face. A collective shudder ran through the viewers. The comments blew up. "That's him. Arrest him. Live footage. No way out now." Caldwell's gaze lifted, meeting the camera with icy disdain. Zoe's phone pinged. An unknown number. Text only. "FBI mobilizing. Don't stop streaming." Zoe grinned. "He's cooked." But Caldwell made his move. A curt gesture and his guards fanned out, moving toward the fire escape. Malik saw them coming. "Get the feed safe," he ordered Zoe. "Lock it on remote." "I'm not leaving you." "Do it." Zoe hesitated, then slammed her laptop shut, grabbing the mobile transmitter. "Signal's on auto. No one's cutting this feed now." Malik handed her the ledger. "You get this to every newsroom, every honest cop left. And tell them my mother's name." Victoria squeezed Zoe's shoulder. "Go." Zoe disappeared into the stairwell as gunfire shattered a window above them. Victoria raised her pistol, emptying it down into the alley, keeping the guards pinned. Malik moved to the ledge, rain battering his face. Ezra Caldwell stared up at him, unflinching. "It's over," Malik shouted. Caldwell smiled, a cruel, thin thing. "You think this ends me, boy?" Malik's jaw tightened. "You ended yourself." Sirens screamed down the block. Dozens of patrol cars, unmarked black SUVs, this time, the good kind. Federal agents and windbreakers swarmed the alley. Caldwell's smile faltered. An agent with a bullhorn stepped forward. "Ezra Caldwell, hands where we can see them." For the first time in his life, the kingpin looked unsure. Victoria stepped to Malik's side, rain running down her face like tears. "You did it." "No," Malik said quietly, watching as Caldwell's guards dropped their weapons one by one. "We did." Zoe's broadcast cut to a final image, Malik holding his mother's photograph in the rain, while red and blue lights turned the night to fire. The city of predators would never be the same. By dawn, Eldridge Park was a different city. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a haze that clung to the streets like the last breath of some dying beast. News vans clustered along the barricades outside Langston Holdings, their bright lights cutting through the mist. Reporters jostled for space, shouting into cameras, while crowds gathered along the sidewalks, faces both angry and hopeful. Malik stood on the rooftop of a crumbling building across the street, his hoodie still damp from the storm, his knuckles raw. Beside him, Victoria Langston leaned against the ledge, a fresh bandage above one eye. Below them, Ezra Caldwell was led from the front of the building in handcuffs, federal agents on either side. His once pristine suit clung to him, rain-soaked and wrinkled, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. A cheer rose from the crowd. Malik didn't cheer. He didn't move. He just watched. It felt surreal. After years of silence, of dead ends and dismissive shrugs, the weight of his mother's absence, of all the other vanished women, was finally forcing itself into the light. The headlines would spin it as corruption, as a criminal empire exposed. But Malik knew what it really was. It was reckoning. Beside him, Victoria took a slow breath. I always thought if this day came, I'd feel free. Malik glanced at her. You don't? She shook her head. Freedom's not a thing you get overnight. It's what you fight for every day after. This is just a start. Down below, Zoe Walker spoke into a camera, the flash drive still clutched in her hand. Sources confirm multiple high-ranking officials, judges, and law enforcement officers are among those arrested this morning. Evidence points to decades of trafficking, financial crimes, and conspiracy covered up by city elites. The image of Rosa Hayes flashed on the screen behind her. Not a mugshot, not a statistic. A woman laughing in a sunlit park holding a small boy in her arms. Malik's throat tightened. Victoria noticed. She'd be proud, you know. Malik swallowed hard. I wish she was here to see it. She is, Victoria said softly. You carry her every step. He nodded, the ache in his chest sharper than he expected. A phone buzzed in Victoria's pocket. She checked it and grimaced. Federal protection wants us to meet them at a safe house. Hollings is dead, Caldwell's going down, but there's still pieces of this thing out there. Malik's eyes narrowed. Good. Let them come. Victoria smirked. You're not exactly subtle, kid. I'm not a kid anymore. He meant it. Victoria pushed away from the ledge. There's one more thing you should know. Malik turned to her. I lied to you back in the hospital, she admitted. I told you your mother was probably dead. I said it because I didn't want to give you false hope. But when Hollings' men took her, it wasn't a clean job. Some of the old guard claimed she got away before they could finish it. Disappeared into the underground. Malik's pulse skipped. You saying she might still be out there? I don't know, Victoria said, her voice gentle. But if anyone could beat those odds, it'd be Rosa Hayes. Malik's stomach churned with a strange, unfamiliar mix of grief and hope. He looked out over the city, where the early morning light turned the glass towers gold, where people once invisible to power were finally being seen. This ain't over, Malik said quietly. No, Victoria agreed. It's just the beginning. Malik took a final look at the street below, at the agents loading Caldwell into a waiting van, at Zoe's broadcast still lighting up screens, at the faces in the crowd, angry, proud, unbroken. Then he turned away from the ledge, walking toward whatever came next. The city didn't sleep the next night. Eldridge Park, so long suffocated by silence, buzzed with restless, uneasy energy. Every street corner seemed alive with clusters of people trading stories. Names of missing cousins, sisters, neighbors who'd vanished without explanation over the years. The weight of what had been uncovered wasn't abstract anymore. It was personal. It was everywhere. Malik walked those streets at dusk, moving like a man both burdened and unburdened at once. The adrenaline from the storm, the rooftop broadcast, the arrests, it had all given way to something heavier. The reality that justice wasn't a one-night thing. It didn't tie itself up with perfect endings. It left bruises, empty spaces, and a list of questions too long for one lifetime. He passed the shuttered remains of the old corner store where Henrietta used to keep her ledger. It was boarded up now, though a single candle burned in the window. A message. The old woman hadn't skipped town. She was watching, always. Malik crossed the park where he used to sit on the swings as a kid, counting stars through the smog and wishing for his mother's return. And now, knowing what he did, about Hollings, Caldwell, and Victoria's revelation. Those wishes felt like tiny acts of resistance, ones that somehow led him here. A small crowd had gathered outside a community center on 53rd Street, where a makeshift memorial had risen overnight. Dozens of photos lined the steps, faces of missing women, names written in marker, candles flickering, flowers laid gently on the concrete. He recognized some of them from the ledgers. And there, near the top, a picture of Rosa Hayes. Not a mugshot or a grainy ID photo, but a snapshot Malik had never seen before. His mother laughing, standing beside a younger Victoria, both of them holding up protest signs at a rally years ago. Strong, defiant. Malik swallowed the lump in his throat as an older woman beside him murmured, "About time people remembered who we lost." "They were never lost," Malik said softly. "Just buried." He stepped forward, crouching to place a single battered photograph, the one Victoria had given him, at the base of the memorial. A boy and his mother, a stolen life. Then he straightened, turning as Victoria appeared beside him, her face pale but resolute. "You ready?" she asked. Malik nodded. Together, they stepped inside the community center, where a small press gathering waited. Not the polished faces of the mainstream, but independent journalists, neighborhood advocates, people who knew what it meant to fight for scraps of truth. Zoe was already there, organizing files on a table, the flash drive of evidence duplicated a dozen times. No more hiding, no more single points of failure. An old preacher Malik vaguely recognized from childhood raised his hand for quiet. "We gather here not to mourn alone," the preacher began, his voice deep and raw, "but to build, to make sure no mother, no sister, no daughter disappears again without a city remembering their names." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Victoria turned to Malik. "This is your fight now, too, not for revenge, for them." Malik glanced at the names on the wall, the faces in the crowd, the candle flames refusing to die. "I know," he said. The meeting began. Plans for a foundation in Rosa Hayes' name, legal funds for the families, pressure on City Hall, demands for a memorial and a full investigation. No one expected overnight victories, but no one here believed in silence anymore. And as Malik spoke, laying out what they'd done and what was still to come, the tightness in his chest eased for the first time in years. Not gone, but eased. Outside, night settled over Eldridge Park. But in the windows of every building, candles flickered. Little stubborn flames in the dark, the kind you build a revolution around. In the months that followed, Ezra Caldwell was tried and convicted, his empire dismantled brick by brick. Half the city council resigned. Langston Holdings shuttered its offices, its assets seized, its name forever stained. The Rosa Hayes Foundation became a sanctuary for the families of the missing, a place to grieve, to remember, to fight. Malik Hayes became its face, not a polished spokesman, but a boy who grew into a man through fire, a man who understood that some victories are jagged, incomplete things. And on every anniversary, the city would gather at the memorial in Eldridge Park, where new names were no longer added. A wall of faces, a garden of names, and a single bronze plaque, in memory of those who refused to be forgotten. Underneath it, in small, worn letters, "Some truths will be buried." Until we dig them out. Malik visited often, sometimes alone, sometimes with Victoria, sometimes with new families he barely knew, but whose grief felt like his own. And every time he left, he'd whisper the same thing. "I didn't forget you, Ma. I never will." Because storms pass, but names live, and Malik Hayes made damn sure of that. If this story of injustice and transformation moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that turn pain into power.